Hello there and welcome to a brand new Let's Play here on my channel. This is World Rally Championship, or WRC1 as I'll be calling it, for the Sony PlayStation 2, released in 2001, developed by Evolution Studios and published by Sony Computer Entertainment exclusively for the Sony PlayStation 2. WRC, or World Rally Championship, would be a fully licensed game based on WRC, and more specifically the 2001 WRC season, which would see Richard Burns be crowned the champion, the late great Richard Burns, who would be in a battle with also late and great Colin McRae and Tommy Mackinnon, which ended in an exciting freeway duel at the Rally of Great Britain. This game features the 14 locations that were on the World Rally calendar then, as well as all of the official manufacturer cars and official manufacturer drivers and co-drivers, which is pretty cool and interesting, save for one. Guess who that is? Anyways, we will go ahead and get into the options menu quickly because we do have to change a few things around. We are going to want widescreen on because we are playing this on a modern television. On sound, you'll notice I have music and effects turned down and the co-driver turned way up. Now, I should explain, this is a rally game. In rally games, you have a co-driver who tells you of everything coming up. Now, admittedly, in this game, they do include a map, which is a little bit weird, but for this game, and future games, and indeed any future rally games I do, I will need to turn the co-driver up because I sort of need to have him there, so I do apologise if you can hear him slightly in the background, but I do need that in the background. As far as this all goes, we are good. We will use analog steering. I'm going to leave automatic gear change on for this game and WRC2 because they are a lot more arcadey. So there we go. Extras is just cheats, secrets, bonus stages, and some movies, so we can watch the game intro and the intro to the actual career mode. Speaking of which, we should go ahead and get into the World Rally Championship mode.
Welcome to one of the most demanding and challenging motorsport competitions on the planet, the World Rally Championship. Take some of the best drivers in the world, add some of the most incredible cars, and mix in some tarmac, gravel and ice. Forget about first across the line, the race in the WRCs against the toughest rival of all, time. Each rally is broken into stages with points for the fastest times taken to complete the overall event. The cars themselves carry the names of some familiar family motors, but under the skin they're purpose-built rally machines with four-wheel drive, turbos galore and horsepower counted in the hundreds. They'll need it too, with conditions across the championship ranging from sub-zero Scandinavian forests to the overpowering heat and dust of Kenya and Greece. With the World Rally Championship, it's not just a question of winning, but surviving.
Alrighty. So from there we can select our difficulty, novice, normal and professional, which is grayed out because you can only play professional after you've completed the difficulty of normal. So we're going to select normal and then we'll come back and do the professional difficulty later on. So technically we are playing through this game twice. So here is our selection of cars. We get, of course, all of the manufacturer-based cars that were in the series. None of the privateers would show up until Rally Evolved, and even then, only in a very small role. But in this game, we get to play with all of the sort of manufacturer-approved cars that ran in the 2001 season. So we get the choice of the Peugeot 206 WRC, the Ford Focus WRC, the Subaru Impreza WRC, that being a bug-eye, the Mitsubishi Lancer WRC, which would be an Evo 6, the final year for the Evo 6, the Hyundai Accent, which was not a particularly successful car, the Skoda Octavia WRC, which was also not a very successful car, and the Citroen Zara, which interestingly in 2001 was actually only taking part in a part-time series. They were testing that car and developing it into the rally superstar it would eventually become. And of course this game does not feature Sebastian Loeb either because he was too busy dominating Junior WRC before he'd move into real WRC and then dominate the piss out of that. So in terms of the car we are going to select, well, I mean, I'm a big Subaru fan, so I've got to use the Impreza on our first way out. So we can play as Richard Burns, late great, who of course won the championship, Petter Solberg, who has no rally wins, I don't think he'll really come for anything, Marco Martin, which is weird, I remember him driving Fords in the next few games, and Tashori Arai, with an Australian co-driver, bit of a strange one, but there you go. So we are going to go for Petter Solberg because he is a young up-and-comer who probably won't amount to much. So let's go ahead and get into this.
There are few rallies more prestigious or glamorous than Monte Carlo, and this is where the World Rally Championship begins. It starts in Monaco, then heads up onto Alpine roads further north before dropping back down into the Principality. It's run entirely on tarmac, but snow and ice always make for a few surprises. The oldest event in the WRC calendar is the one the top teams really want to win.
Alrighty, that just seems to stop there. So of course we start with Monte Carlo, as we do on every single World Rally Championship run over, because this is where it starts. Stage 1, I'm not going to attempt to say that. So we can change our setup slightly. Of course the later games would expand on this, but essentially the game sort of gives you what it thinks you should run, and then you can make adjustments if you wish. We are going to leave it as that. We can do a shakedown run, not going to bother with that. So we'll just get straight into this. So the interesting thing I will say, when it comes to actually choosing a driver, which I forgot to mention, there is a bit of a tactical element to it. You know, do you want to pick a faster driver? Well, that's ideally what you want to do. Because, for example, say Richard Burns or Tommy Mäkinen or so on, if you play as them, you take them out the championship. And this game, I don't know if it uses the real-life rally stats, but essentially the AI, the better they are in the real world, or were at the time of this game coming out, the better they will be in-game. So, for example, Richard Burns would be a very quick driver. Carlos Sanz would be a very quick driver, and stuff like that. So you've sort of got to, you know, choose tactically whether you want to go for a quicker driver instead of just going for the underdog, as us Brits would usually like to do. So, yeah. As you can see, a little bit of a basic looking game. Of course, this first entry into the series would be. My analog stick is just deciding not to work. We'll address that later on. We're already up to a good old World Rally problem then, so let's try and fix that quickly. Okay, there we go. We've got proper steering now. Although I feel like maybe it should have been on digital, considering. Maybe not. Anyways, as you can see, yeah, the game, it doesn't look like anything special, but of course this was a very early game for the PlayStation 2. I can't remember if this was released before or after Gran Turismo 3. Of course it doesn't look quite as nice as Gran Turismo 3, but then again Gran Turismo 3 didn't have quite as many different locations and stuff as this game does. So, yeah, no, this is probably the most well-known of the entire series. I mean, people might know Rally Evolved, because that game was pretty popular, as well as WRC 4, both of them really expensive PS2 titles, but this game is probably the one that's most well-known, because this was the only one I can seem to find actually existed in North America. So these games were essentially exclusively European. Some of them were released in Asian market. I believe this game was, as well as WRC 2 and 3, and then they just sort of stopped. So the last two games, WRC 4 and Rally Evolved, are EU exclusive, so a little bit of a strange choice, especially considering it's the World Rally Championship and this was at the height of Rally's popularity, but there you go. So if you live in North American or Asian markets, then you are probably far more used to Colin McRae being the sort of champion rally series. And in fairness to the Colin McRae games, they were received a lot better than the Evolution Studios WRC games, but I still like these games. I love a good sort of motorsport game that focuses on one series, aims to do a really good job of focusing on that series. And yeah, you can sort of play through a genuine championship role. I feel it immerses me a bit more in the experience, but maybe that's just me. That's the reason I like the old Toka games, for example. I mean, we could set a name, but I think it might reset every time. Let's see if that's true or not. So yeah, we set a world record. Of course we didn't. Rhino GT4 played this game, but we set a record for the game's internal leaderboard. Of course, this is long before we had real-life leaderboards. So we won that pretty handedly. Carlos Sanz was sort of on us, Tommy Mäkinen, Francis Delacour. The Skoda did quite well, considering the Skoda's usually down towards the bottom because bless the Skoda Octavia, it did not have a good time in World Rally, and neither did the Hyundai Accent, really. Of course, Hyundai nowadays is doing pretty well in WRC, but back then with the Accent, they weren't doing so well. And the Skoda, the Skoda, I have a soft spot for the Octavia. I'll explore the Octavia later on, i.e. in WRC 2, where it's a bit better represented, but the Octavia is one of my favourite rally cars, and I do feel sorry for it, because it's sort of a case of Skoda not really reading the rule book correctly. Because essentially there was length limits, you know, how long or short your car should have been in WRC. And, well, Peugeot realised at the time, as you've seen with the 206 being in this game, which is a very small car, they just put a body kit on it to sort of widen the car and get it to meet the length standards. Skoda didn't realise this, so they just entered the Octavia, which was just a massive, massive vehicle, when they could have, you know, entered the Fabia and just put a body kit on it, like they did later on. Of course, by the time they realised that, you know, it was a bit too late, but there you go. Of course, back in this time, you know, this was when Rally was really at its height of popularity, and we had a lot of, you know, manufacturer interest. There was a few new manufacturers showing up, and then of course you had the stalwarts of Mitsubishi and Subaru. Although, of course, a lot of people sort of don't realise, sort of, you know, the era of Subaru and Mitsubishi that a lot of people are nostalgic for in Rally, you know, the Evo 7, 8, 9, the second-gen Imprezas. These cars, I mean, the Impreza, sure, had a fair few drivers that would end up getting championships out of it. But in terms of the actual manufacturer standings and so on, you know, these weren't the cars to have. The cars to have were the French ones. You know, you really wanted the Peugeot 206 and later on the Citroën Zara, which would ruin everything. And then, of course, Citroën would go on their absolute massive domination spree of the sport. So, yeah. I think that's when sort of many people checked out rallying, of course, when Colin McRae left and sorry, not Phil Mills. Phil Mills is still perfectly alive. You know, and of course, tragically, Burns would die as well. You know, I feel like that sort of, and Mäkinen, of course, leaving as well. That all of those would sort of dwindle the sport down, and then eventually, you know, also what didn't help is the fact that sport became dominated by people called Sebastian. And not taking anything away from Loeb as a driver, because he is an absolutely he's just incredible. But you know, motorsport fans don't like it when someone wins all the time. So that is something to bear in mind as well. I can ramble about rally for a long old time, because I used to very much enjoy watching the WRC on TV. I kind of need to get into it with the newer series, although the cars don't really interest me as much anymore. Because I hate to be one of those purists, but I much preferred rally when the cars were a little bit more normalised, Group A cars. I know people, you know, pine after the Group B cars and so on and so forth, but while they're crazy, you know, I'm much more interested in cars like this, the Impreza, the Lancer, the cars that, you know, of course they are a fair bit different from the ones you can buy at the showroom, but they are sort of, you know, they look like the cars they're based on. You know, you look at a modern day WRC Toyota Yaris or an i20, there's no i20 or a Yaris that looks even remotely close. Yeah, let's have a quick review of the points. Mäkinen, Sanz, Delacour, Schwartz and Rovanperä. Schwartz is doing pretty well. I'm trying to remember, I think it was 2001 where a Skoda driver almost died at Monte Carlo. He took a corner a bit too fast, and if you've ever played Dirt Rally 2.0, or the original Dirt Rally even, you might remember sort of little bridge sections which have those bridges with the concrete posts, and if you go over the side of them you can fall down the mountain. Yeah, a Skoda almost did that in real life. I think it was Schwartz that was driving. No, it wasn't Schwartz, it was the bloke from the Czech Republic. Costa, I think it was, yeah. Well, I think that's his name, yeah. Costa almost bit it at Monte Carlo, so yeah, in real life Skoda didn't particularly enjoy this, but there you go. Again, we all feel bad for the Octavia. We love the Octavia. It was actually a pretty cool looking rally car as well. Then again, the Fabia looked pretty cool. It's weird to see Skodas in race trim, let's be perfectly honest. Not weird at all to see a mighty car like the Subaru Impreza here in its traditional blue and yellow pro-drive colours. Or Subaru's official racing colours, but of course these cars were run by pro-drive. But yeah, no, I mean, it is, again, graphically might not be the most appealing looking game to you, but, you know, I kind of like it. I think it's got a little bit of, well, not looks-wise, but the actual gameplay itself is pretty good. And I actually, rather controversially, I think the handling in this game is better than it would be in the later title, in WRC 2, where I feel they made everything a little bit too arcadey. Don't get me wrong, this game is not realistic by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, in this game it has a fault set in realism. In that game it sticks its head purely in the arcade, make everything crazy basket, and then they'd sort of drown it down a little bit for WRC 3, 4, and then went off the rails with Rally Evolved. So anyways, we're doing pretty well. I'm not driving particularly well, but I seem to be doing quite well in these stages. I will say, I definitely seem to have got better at these rally games, because when I first started playing through these old PS2 era WRC games, I was pretty dreadful at them. I'm pretty dreadful at WRC games in general, but I seem to be doing a little bit better in these ones. Oh, I was beaten by Sands in that one. Was I beaten in the last one? No, I wasn't. Alright. See if we can get the good old leaderboard up and see what happened. I'd imagine the results were basically the same as the last time around. Sands, then us, Mackinnon, Schwartz, Delacour, and I can't pronounce that name. It wasn't Rovanperä though. We're still winning though by 11 seconds. So we got a pretty decent win at Monte Carlo. We should be looking pretty good for a Monte Carlo win. Which is good, because Monte Carlo is the rally I'm kind of scared of in these games. Because I'm not much of a tarmac rally person, which sounds a bit strange considering I spend a lot of time playing, you know, track games and stuff like that, but for whatever reason in these rally games, even in like Rally 2.0 and stuff, I am awful on tarmac. Get me on gravel, get me on snow, more specifically. I'm pretty good at snow and ice driving, but in terms of tarmac rally, I'm pretty useless, so I wouldn't side me based on any of my performances. So expect to see the tarmac rallies me not do particularly well, but yeah, we'll see as the series goes on. Sometimes the interesting thing with these games is that they went on, sort of stages did change and become different. You know, one stage that was really easy and fun to drive in one game later turned out to be awful in the next game. New Zealand in WRC 4 is sort of my biggest example of that. In WRC 3, it's lovely, it's fun, it's basically Diet Australia, but in WRC 4 it kicks you in the teeth. So the one interesting thing, for me at least, when it comes to these games is I find the hardest stages are actually right at the start, because of course this game follows the WRC calendar. You know, difficulty doesn't really progress so much as, you know, it comes down to you, you know, what stage do you prefer to drive, what stage do you think you'll be bad at, so on and so forth. Not particularly good run onto these hairpins here. There we go. I will say in this game, having the map up there does help a fair bit. Of course, that's not a thing in later games. They sort of figured out the fact that you can pretty much cheese a stage just by staring at the map up there, but you know, we all have to go through teething errors and so on and so forth. Another thing to note about this game over the later WRC games is the cars that you saw on the surface are the only cars you can get in this game. In the later games they introduce different versions of these cars, which are interesting. We'll get into those, but in terms of this game, Essentially these 7 cars, I think it is, that you get introduced from the start of the game are the only cars that you can select from. So, you know, if you like car variety, maybe it's not so much a game for you. Usually I'm a big fan of having as much car variety and so on, but you know, because it's rally, I can sort of forgive it. It's like the Tokyo games, you know. I like touring cars, so I can forgive it. If it was a game that's full of, I don't know. Actually, I don't know, because I kind of do like these sort of depictions of one motorsport that does really well. As much as I like my Forzas and stuff, which just focus on having as many different cars as possible as well. Long hairpin right. I will say, as much as Monaco is supposed to be a lovely, picturesque place full of tax dodgers, the Monte Carlo rally on these games does not look particularly impressive, it has to be said. I will say, looking at the game on the preview window, it looks a fair bit different to what this game actually looks like, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Might have to work some editing magic to breathe some more life, but just looking at the base footage, it looks slightly more colourful, but a bit darker and different. Different, yeah, let's just say different. I will say the one funny thing about watching gameplay videos of these games, or rather watching Let's Plays of rally games, is, you know, you concentrate really hard on making sure that you drive well in these stages and get all the turns right, and then you watch the footage back and it like does not look impressive at all. You know, it looks like it could have been a million miles an hour faster through certain stages and stuff like that. That's something I had to come to terms with when I started playing Dirt Rally 2.0. Yeah, we did pretty well, kept Sainz at bay. Carlos Sainz. I'm sorry, I can't really say his name. I say it right once and then I'll just say it wrong for the rest of this game apparently. Sainz, there you go. Not Sainz, Sainz. I think. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to record a fair few of these, so if I am wrong I apologise, because you won't... I won't hear your comments. Sainz, Mäkinen, Delacour, Burns was up here with us. Okay, so Subaru, I can't remember if this game has the manufacturer standings. The later games do, I'm not sure if, can't quite remember if this one does. So we've got Sainz, Mäkinen, Delacour, Schwartz and Rovanperä. Sainz is the only one we have to worry about, and you know, with 2 stages to go, we've got a decent enough lead on him. Provided we don't run into a horrific accident, we should be alright. So, another thing to note about this game, as opposed to games going on for this, even the next game, WRC 2, in terms of mechanical damage, which is a big thing in rallies, you know, of course, we've seen lots and lots of people retire with mechanical damage. For example, Colin McRae this very season, who lost the championship because he took a corner a little bit too fast and it didn't really pay off. That was a spectacular crash, but no, this game does have mechanical damage. You can see little lights at the bottom of the screen. It is very basic, and it is repaired at the start of each special stage starting. So, unlike quite a lot of rally games, and indeed later games in the Evolution Studios series, there isn't a, you know, any strategy when it comes to selecting, oh, am I going to repair this, or am I going to leave it because I need the time and stuff like that. There's none of that in this game. The car's repaired at the start of every stage, but of course you do need to keep the car in good technical order for the rallies ahead, or for the stage itself. Although I do find it is pretty hard to damage the car, I'll be honest. Getting some sort of visual damage isn't too bad. Getting like actual mechanical damage can be a fair bit harder. If you whack a wall really hard, you can do so, but usually, you know, using like that, using the guardrails to sort of steer the car a little bit isn't too bad. Oh, this is the really hilly stage. I'm not very quick at this stage. I am very not quick at this stage. I think this is the stage that's in WRC 2 and is like ridiculous in that game. That game has a certainly interesting sort of rake values, I guess, on the mountains. You know, the drops in that game are very significant. They're kind of big in this game, but that game really takes the cake with these. But of course we shall all see that in due time. I do plan to play through all of these games, the Evolution Studios WRC games. Of course, I should sort of make clear as well, a little bit of confusion that might come out of this. I'm going to refer to these games as WRC. Technically, for the YouTube algorithm, it would probably be better to refer to them as World Rally Championship because, of course, later on, the WRC license would be picked up by, I can't remember the developer. I know it's Big Ben, I think, who published them now, or developed them now. But before that, I can't really remember. But either way, they started from the start, and so they have WRC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then they switched developers, and the developers kept the naming, the numbering schedule, probably because they didn't want to like start, you know, have 3 WRC 1s or 3 WRC 2s. And of course, we're now up to WRC 9 on those games, which is not the latest release, but that's what's coming out. It's going to be out very soon, so by the time you watch this, if you're watching this when it comes out, then no. If you're watching this later on, then yes, WRC 9 would have come out and probably been superseded by WRC 10, but it shouldn't. Not quite sure how well WRC 9 is going to be, considering there's not really much of a 2020 season to base the game on, but they're doing it, so let them, I guess. Oh wow. I said I wasn't very good at this stage, but apparently I am doing a pretty good job of killing off Mäkinen. I believe this was the final year Mäkinen was in a Mitsubishi. He switched to a Subaru at some point, which seemed a little bit controversial, and Colin McRae would end up, yeah. The funny thing with McRae and Subaru is people don't realise the fact that while he was with Subaru for the start of his career, and for a fair good spell, sort of when he was really starting to come into his own popularity rise, he wasn't really driving a Subaru. You know, he had his big deal with Ford. He drove with Ford, and then he switched to Citroen in 2003, and then was out of the championship by 04, returned in 05 to drive a Skoda for a couple of rounds, and then went on his merry way again. Yeah, a little bit of a strange career, McRae, but there's not all that much sort of manufacturer loyalty in World Rally, especially at this time. So we were 5 seconds up on Mäkinen. Sainz is, yeah, we're destroying Sainz now. Delacour, that could be a Schwartz, and Marcus Gronholm, finally, my favourite driver. Not quite, but he's up there. Oh, okay, that's the end of the rally. So, wow, the battle between Mäkinen and Sainz was pretty darn close. And then it's basically everyone else. But either way, we score 10 points. And we are the Rally Automobile Monte Carlo winners. So congratulations to us. Apparently this was the 90-year anniversary of that. So there are our current driver standings. Oh, we do have manufacturer standings. Excellent. So, yeah, fortunately Hyundai and Citroen, no points. Peugeot gets 1, Skoda gets 3, amazingly. 4 for Ford, 6 for Mitsubishi, and of course Subaru is up here with 12. Wonderful. So anyways, that is it for today's episode. Thank you all very much for watching. Join us next time when we are going to be taking a look at the next leg of the World Rally Championship. So join us for that. Until then, farewell.
You know the fear, the sorrow that my heart holds in, knowing just where my hopes and dreams are going. I won't let you break. Got up in a war that you are not part of. I sing this letter to your father with love.